Welcome back to another episode of Be Our Guest here on Musical Theater Radio. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Yovanov. I love being in the kitchen, but I'm more of a cook than a baker. I can do it. I'm just more of a savory than sweet type of guy. But if fondant and flaky pastry is your thing, this next show is going to be right up your alley. We're going to be talking with the creators of the musical Just Desserts, and their press release describes it best. I couldn't even do it better. It says, it's sweet, it's savory, it's five strangers putting their hearts, reputations, and baking skills on the line to become the creme de la creme of bakers at a country fair. Grab your aprons as I'd like to welcome the creators of the musical Just Desserts, Brad Ross and Barbara Campbell. Brad, how you doing?
Very well, Jean-Paul. Thank you for hosting me today.
No problem. Now, Barbara isn't available right this second. She might be joining us because, life gets in the way sometimes. And so hopefully she'll just pop up at some time during the interview, and that'd be fantastic. But Brad, I want to get to know you a little bit before we start into the conversation about the show. I want to know who Brad is in 30 seconds. Can you give the Brad Ross 30-second bio?
The Brad Ross 30-second bio is, I'm a composer that prides himself on writing music that's tuneful, well married with the lyrics, advances the story and the character, has a wonderful groove and sound or whatever is appropriate for the dramatic situation, and loves to write for the musical theater.
That's a perfect bio for a musical theater composer. So awesome. Let me take it back before. I'd like to get to know who you are. When you were growing up, was it musical theater a big thing in your life, or is that something you discovered a little bit later?
I think one of my early shows was Raisin. I come from a musical family, studied the piano from a young age, also the clarinet, switched to the bassoon, discovered composition and songwriting, and music theory and analysis and all that kind of good stuff in college, and then just went for it hook, line, and sinker from there. And musical theater very much grew on me very quickly after it took hold.
Did you always want to write music, or was there something else that you thought about becoming before?
I was meddling with the idea of going into the music business, the sort of sit behind the desk side of the event, but I got very, very consumed with the idea of creating my own music, as opposed to replicating other people's music, whether it be classical, pop, jazz, whatever it was. I I was smitten with doing it myself.
Nice.
Yeah.
So did you go to post-secondary for music?
I did. I went, I ended up majoring in music at Cornell University, and then I ended up at the NYU musical theater program. And I'm proud to say I was cycle 2, which was this obviously the second cycle. I think they're now up to 20 something.
I think they're at 30, actually.
30, there we go. And at that time, the luminaries that came by to talk to us were just stunning. Sheldon Harnick and Richard Maltby and Martin Charnin and Peter Stone, and it was just an amazing list of people to get to rub elbows with.
What was it like to sit in a class and having those people, Sheldon Harnick standing in front of you, spewing his vast years of knowledge, and you're sitting there as a young composer and musical theater person? What was that like?
He was very casual, I guess. Somehow the one thing I remember is I think I played him a melody, and he said, "Oh, can you play that again?" Yeah, I mean, all of these people, it was just nice to hear what they had to say, because they've been in the trenches, done the real deal.
So you got out of NYU. What was the first show that you worked
on? Well, the first show I probably was the show I wrote for the NYU musical theater thesis project, our grad thesis project, which I wrote. I was paired with a wonderful librettist, lyricist by the name of Joe Keenan, who went on to win multi-Emmys for his work on Frasier, um, and published several novels, and it was a wonderful show. I'd still love to finish it someday, based on a very old 1930s movie called The Young in Heart, about a bunch of crooks, a family of crooks that get taken in by a sweet little old lady who treats them so well that they become reformed and reform themselves from being crooks because they feel so guilty that they're fleecing this little old lady. So they
Nice.
good people.
That actually sounds like a fun musical. Yeah. If you ever revisit us, let us know. I'd love to learn more about it. So let's talk about Just Desserts. I know Barbara's, indisposed right now, but maybe she'll pop up at some point. But yeah, tell us why Just Desserts? What made you think of this idea?
I'm sort of a bit of a foodie, so that's kind of a little passion of mine. And the things like the Pillsbury Bake Off and contests, like Spelling Bee, like Chorus Line is a contest of sorts. So I thought I like the idea. I love cooking. I love food. I thought the idea of a cooking contest, although it's not original, there's been other cooking shows around. But the idea took hold of me, and I took it to Barbara, who bit. So literally.
So how long ago was this idea first percolated?
Good question. This is a very, very rough guess. I'd have to look at my music sketches. Probably about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And we've done 3 or 4 readings. The last reading we did was in 2017. I had met the artistic director of the Legacy Theater in Branford, Connecticut, and she did a reading up there that went extremely well. And out of that reading and the positive response, she brought us this production that we're doing now.
Very nice. And when you approached Barbara about this concept, was that something she glommed onto right away because she's a foodie as well, or is something that she went, oh, okay, let's figure this out?
I'm not sure Barbara is a foodie, but Barbara is a fantastic dramatist, and I think she knows a good story when she sees one. The prospect of writing an original book for a musical is, more daunting than an adaptation, as we know.
For sure.
But she climbed on board, and she's concocted a marvelous story. I mean, out of her head, no less, right? Nothing prefab, nothing adapted.
Cool. So I gave a brief overview, and that was a fantastic way. But give us your interpretation of the plot and a little bit about the story itself.
Sure. It's an annual contest held at a county fair in the Midwest, state unnamed, in which we have 5 contestants, and we have an MC. And during the course of the show, we have some flashbacks in which we learn about the 5 contestants, but primarily it's a contest to determine the winner. And there's, of course, ups and downs and surprises along the way.
And is there actual food in it? Because that can be so much more work for a stage manager, especially.
There is no actual food, although we've pondered the idea of selling some sweets during intermission or at the end of the show. But no actual food will be served during this musical.
Was it easy, right? Once you came up with the concept, because it's easy to come up with a concept, right? It's right there. Was it easy to figure out those characters and their motivations, and was there changes along the way for the different people?
Yeah, there were changes. There were songs that were cut, new songs that were written. In terms of coming up with the characters, that's more a Barbara question. But I have to say that the writing, both on the book side and on the songwriting side, went pretty smoothly. Our collaboration was smooth. The rewrites that Barbara made along the way were smooth. I'd never really felt that we were in crisis. As so many, sometimes you do on projects.
Yeah.
It's on the precipice of success or failure, but this went relatively nicely.
Was this the first time you and Barbara worked together?
Good question. I believe this. We should verify this, but I'm almost positive we met years and years ago at the BMI Musical Theater Workshop,
Okay.
and I for certain know that we wrote several isolated songs, more for just a couple of Christmas songs. One of them that's gotten a lot of play, called "Guess What? It's Christmas," and then a couple of other songs that were published for the school choral market. But those were one-offs. We never wrote a musical together until this.
Are you the type of person who writes better as a collaboration, or do you find that it's difficult to mesh with people? Because I know I'm an independent person, so I'm not always the best person to work with somebody else. But is that an easy thing for you in general?
I do enjoy the collaborative process very much. And being that I'm just a composer, I don't write my own lyrics. It's always a collaboration. However, I must qualify that I've had 3 or 4 occasions where I've I've set pre-existing verse to music. I've set 2 stories by Ogden Nash to music that became a musical called The Tales of CUSTARD the Dragon. I've set the classic tale, 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, to music. It's been performed by over like 25 orchestras with vocalists and choirs. And I set it to music verbatim, word for word. I've set Edward Lear, The Nonsense of Edward Lear. So if I'm taken by the right verse, I can do that. But basically, I like to collaborate with living lyricists.
It's a little easier sometimes with the living ones, though they complain much more than the dead ones. You have to admit, you can do whatever you want. Before we get back to Justin's verse, do you like getting the lyrics first, or do you like creating the music first?
That's a good question, and I love that question. I prefer doing the music first, but I've written to lyrics first when it's necessary. I've also written to a title. And one of the ways I like to work is having the lyricist in the same room and talking about the moment and sort of improvising something at the piano and then putting it down on, I was going to say put it down on tape, but putting it down on phone. Right.
I still call it tape, I know. So when was the first performance of Just Desserts? When did that first happen?
I'd have to check my records, but we did a reading here in New York, probably 2013, 2014, 2012, somewhere in there. And we did 3 or 4 readings between up until the 2017 reading at Brantford, Connecticut at the Legacy Theater. And then we've had this dry spell waiting for this, between then and now with this production coming. Yeah.
And how was that that first performance when you see that first time you see your show on stage? Even if you've written like 20, 30 shows or whatever, seeing that first, because that new child of yours, what was that like? And how was the audience and things like that?
It was kind of semi-private, although people were invited. It was in a small room. We learned a lot about the show. We made changes. For me personally, this is a little of a departure because all of the readings that we've done to this point, I musical directed and I played the piano. So this is the first time I'll be sitting in the audience. So for me, it'll be a slightly different experience having a musical director do my job as music, and getting to watch it.
Cool. So what have you been doing then during the pandemic? Since a lot of people have taken the last year and a bit and figured out new stuff. What have you been up to, Brad?
I've had 2 projects. One of them is called Love and Other Destinations. That's a new musical review, and it just streamed a week and a half ago by the University of Albany Theater Department in a stunning digital film with 16 of their students, directed by Chad Larrabee, who teaches there, and he edited it and directed and filmed them, or sometimes they film themselves. And so it involved writing out the entire score, which is a 1-hour show of 18 songs.
Wow.
Notating it, getting it copied, and then working with the orchestrator, a wonderful orchestrator, Robert Elhai, who did The Lion King, and that was a big job. And then I was also doing the copy work on Just Desserts, because I had lead sheets of the score, but I had to create piano vocal scores for this production. So those two things consumed me quite a bit. Thank God I had them on my plate to keep me busy.
For sure. Well,
Yeah.
what was that show about? The one with the school.
Love and Other Destinations is a new musical review, dealing with essentially love in its different permutations, from joy to heartbreak. And as a review, it takes us in different places. There's a song for a dog, song for a cat, or sung by a dog, sung by a cat, but all dealing with subject and child rearing and maturing and getting through love and getting over love and falling in love. And it's wonderful. And the lyricist on that is Michael Cooper. Need to give Michael credit. And the producer is Kevin Duda.
And what was that experience like, working virtually? Did you find it any different than when you were working, or was it essentially working on a show was working on a show no matter the type of medium?
Michael and I wrote the entire show remotely. But we met in 2019, so a chunk of the show was written before the pandemic. So the writing of the show was, I would send Michael a melody. We'd have a moment in mind, or he would think of a subject that would be appropriate for the review.
Yeah.
And I would have the melody note perfect for him. But the fun part was the orchestrator, Robert Elhai, is in Minneapolis. So we were many phone calls. He would be sending me MIDI tracks or MIDI reductions of his orchestrations. And then when it became time to record real musicians, we had stellar Broadway players who each recorded in their own location to a click track. So keyboards, bass, drums, and guitar, with the guitarist in New Jersey and the keyboardist in Brooklyn and the drummer in New Jersey. Crazy.
I know this pandemic it's obviously been a terrible thing, but it's forced us to learn new skills and to think in different directions, which once we're able to go back live, we're going to be able to utilize these things in the future. Because now, like you said, the drummer's in New Jersey, you can have a bass player in Copenhagen, and it doesn't matter where anybody is anymore.
It's true. It's true. I think I think the pandemic's done two things. It's made us miss live theater.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, it's created this virtual digital film form, sort of musical theater on screen, so to speak. And I'm not talking about just a live production, live streams of previous shows. I'm talking about shows created like mine for the medium, the digital medium.
Now, will that show be transferred to the live stage at some point, or is it supposed to live as a virtual medium?
Oh, we're hoping it'll take both. We're actually planning on doing another digital movie with Broadway people, and then we hope that it will translate into live theater. In fact, there were two other digital streams by the Z American Theater in Virginia Beach, mm-hmm. and the Mirror Box Theater in Iowa. Both of them did digital streams of the show. So I have to give them credit. They did a great job. Both theaters did a great job. So yeah, we hope it'll exist digitally as a digital film, and then eventually on stage again.
Do you think of ever doing Just Desserts as a digital?
Look, I mean, anything that'll bring the work to a broader audience. I'm very proud of the show. I think it has a compelling story, and I love the score. So yeah, that'd be great. That'd be awesome. Thank you.
No, hey, and sometimes it makes it easier to see it, right? I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of seeing theater digitally, but it does open up an entire new world, literally, for people to see your works. So, like I said, people in Copenhagen can now see, Just Desserts or whatever if it goes digital. So,
correct, exactly. Yep.
So, what have you been doing outside of that? Do you have anything else going on that you can't talk about, obviously, or I
was so consumed with getting Just Desserts ready and getting Love and Other Destinations ready. So now, yesterday and the day before, I went to the first rehearsals of Just Desserts, They taught the music to the cast, and I was happy to be there and lending an ear and some 10 fingers to the piano. It was great. We have a wonderful director, Bert Bernardi, and the musical director is Dave Bell, and a cast of 6. It's wonderful.
Fantastic. And
Yay!
jumping into the studio is Barbara. She'll be here in just a second.
And there she is.
Hey, Barbara, how are you?
I'm good, Jean-Paul. How are you?
I'm doing good. We're right in the middle of the interview, so it's fantastic. I love when people just pop up and join us. Yeah, thank you. I know you didn't quite know about it because I've been conversing with Brad, and I wasn't sure if Barbara was coming along or knew about it or not, but I'm glad you can join us today.
I'm glad to be here.
Well, I've been talking with Brad. Now, everybody knows who Brad is, and we know the backstory and his history and his childhood. Now it's time to delve into Barbara's childhood.
Dun, dun, dun.
Exactly. So I'm gonna ask you a few questions, Barbara, because I like to get to know the people who are on the show. Who's Barbara in 30 seconds?
An imaginative kid who always played make-believe. Everything from a deer running around the backyard to an explorer in the treehouse. I started writing when I was in probably first or second grade. My first great epic was Cherokee the Wild Pinto, which I typed on my Tom Thumb typewriter. Even then, manuscript formatting was important to me. I wrote, all through junior high and high school. And then actually I got involved in acting. And for a long time, I concentrated on the acting. I ran away to the theater at age 25. My father was horrified. And then I kind of fell into writing for musical theater. I started writing lyrics for children's shows, then for adult shows, eventually began writing book and lyrics. And at some point during that process, I went back to writing. I've had 5 novels published by Daw Books. So I've been going back and forth between writing fiction and writing for musical theater for the last, 10, 15 years now.
Very cool. You answered everything I was going to ask. So
boom.
Perfect.
I'm taking over.
I'm going to just sit back now and let you guys talk.
There you go. Now, hi, folks. Let me tell you more about me. Me.
But we're actually gonna change it, and we're gonna play kind of like the Newlywed Game. Let's see if your answers match Brad's answers, because I'm gonna ask you some stuff about Just Desserts.
Okay.
So when did you first learn about Just Desserts? When Brad came to you about the idea?
Well, that's when I learned about it. He presented the idea, and I said, it sounds really interesting. Keep in mind, I don't bake. So it's been an adventure learning about the kinds of things that might actually be baked at a bake-off. And I can remember Brad sending me a chapter of, it was Julia Child's cookbook. And, so I mean, the thing that attracted me to it was that it was a small show. In all my writing, I like to have shows and books that have humor and as well as heart. And I thought this had the opportunity to have both. So that's basically what drew me to it.
Did you find an easy time picking up the characters? Because you said you don't bake. So did you have to do a lot of research for that? Find out the fondants and the different pastries and
yes. And there were some specific language that I had to master. But ultimately, it's not a story about baking or cooking. It's a story about characters and how the baking shows us something about who these people are and how this experience and this journey changes them, even if it only takes place during one day.
I asked Brad this, I'm going to ask you, do you find it easy to collaborate with people? I don't mean just Brad, I mean, just in general. Because like I said to Brad, I'm not a big fan of working with people because I'm an independent guy. But
you don't play well with others, do
not
you,
really, no. But do you find it easy, or is that more harder?
I think there are challenges either way. I mean, the good thing about collaboration is that you get a lot of brains and a lot of opinions, and you can pick from those. and you have a support network built in. And a lot of the feedback, I remember one of the musicals that I had written, it was an adaptation of Far from the Madding Crowd. The very first reading that we did, the actors brought something to it that I had not imagined about these characters. The same thing happened with, the actors in our readings of Just Desserts. They shed new light and gave me a new way of looking at characters. So, I mean, that for me is the best part about collaboration. I'm used to working on my own for fiction. I mean, I show it to my husband. He's always my first reader. It can be a lonely process. It can be great if you're a control freak because it's all you.
Yeah.
And you don't have to listen to any other opinions, but ultimately you do, because it's not just, you're not writing in a void. You're going to have your agent who's going to weigh in. You're going to have beta readers who weigh in. So you always have to be open to other people's ideas. And sometimes it can be hard to do that, and it can be hard to hear negative criticism. But I think, I like to be able to pick, things that people say that resonate with me without giving up my idea and my concept of what who these people are, what this show is about.
And I asked Brad this. How did you feel that moment when you first saw the Just Desserts on stage? I know you have written other stuff and you've seen it, but each individual show is like an individual child, and you're proud of it. And how was that feeling when you saw that kid on stage?
Well, that's it's obviously a great feeling. Yeah. I mean, assuming it's not a complete disaster and then you just want to go and shoot yourself. But I mean, I think it's a great feeling because, I mean, that's the biggest difference in terms of writing fiction versus writing for the theater. When you write fiction, here it is. You can read it, there it is. But when you're doing a show, you don't really have a sense of it until you've seen it on its feet, until you get hear feedback from the audience and, oh, okay, that joke didn't go over, or, oh, that went over really well. You see what the director does and how the musical director, it doesn't come together until that moment, and then it comes alive.
For sure. It's always exciting to see that first time on stage, whether it works or not, right? Yeah. It's just always exciting. So I asked Brad if this was the first time you guys had worked together. So what is your answer, and have you worked together before?
Well, Brad and I met 100 years ago. I just look very good for my age. We met back at the BMI workshop, and that was, I mean, decades ago. And Brad and I, since then, we collaborated on a couple songs that we wrote, a couple choral numbers. So we've stayed in touch over the years. So that's it was kind of interesting to jump back into a full-scale project again, because we'd never really done that. We'd done like really short-term things. Yeah. And so that worked. I think that's worked out really well for both of us. I mean, we go back so long that if I'm having an off day, Brad's okay about it, and so we know each other well enough that we know each other's strengths and weaknesses, I think.
You two definitely would have won the Newlywed Game.
Same answers. Is that the Newlywed Game?
I don't know. Anybody under 30, you just Google it, right? If you don't
no, it's bum, 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 bum.
Yes,
I think that's the Newlywed Game.
Yes. Was it Chuck Woolery? I can't remember. Was he?
No, not originally. Wasn't it that? Oh no, it was that awful guy with the triangular head. What was his name? Bob Eubanks.
Yep, we've gone off the rails, and I'm okay with that.
That's one of the reasons I love the movie Shrek, because it had all these old references. Yes. And if the Newlywed Game was one of them, it's like, thank you, old people.
Yeah, so anybody under 30, just Google Newlywed Game, watch the YouTube video of it, and you'll be good. You'll be caught up for the rest of us. So what have you been doing, Barb, during the pandemic, when you've been trapped at home? Have you been writing anything, working on some stuff? I've
been doing some work on Just Desserts. I also do a lot of teaching. Okay. I teach creative writing, both at at Westchester Community College, but mostly through the writing workshop that I went to, which is called the Odyssey Writing Workshop Trust. And I also do a lot of editing of manuscripts. In fact, I'm in the middle of one right now. So some of it I do for Odyssey, some of I do as a freelance. So that's, those are the things that I've been doing, which, in that sense, the pandemic really didn't change things too much, because most of my workshops were always online. I'm editing at home. So, that in that sense, life kind of continued as normal for me.
Yeah. Do you and Brad, or Brad, if you want to answer this, do you have anything in the pipes, or something that you think you've thought about that you might be working on together, or you're just gonna whatever happens happens?
I don't know. Brad, okay. Is there a surprise you have for me?
Ooh, an instant reveal on the Musical Theater Radio. Awesome.
Well, as a matter of fact,
exclusive reveal. But, well, I'm glad that you've both been keeping busy and working on the show. So is Just Desserts it's complete and ready to go up on stage if somebody wants to do it right now, or is it still you're still working on it a little bit?
Well, I think we're waiting to see. This is the first full production we've had. And I say full, I probably should put in some air quotes there, because of course it's going to be somewhat different because of COVID-19 and the acting restrictions and the performance restrictions. But this is the first time that we've kind of seen it, all put together with some staging. So I think, I feel like it's strong and ready to go. But, I think you always have to see once you see the production, if there's anything that needs to be tweaked or changed.
Very cool. Well, thank you both for coming on today and talking to me and introducing the world to Just Desserts, because I love discovering new shows. Or shows that I just never have heard of. Right. It's such a fantastic feeling. I can listen to Oklahoma. I can listen to Come From Way. It's all great. But these new shows that I've never heard of are fantastic, and meeting the people behind them. You've been great. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
No problem. I always ask 3 questions of all my guests, because I want to get to know you guys a little bit better, and which the audience loves to know as well. So I'm going to ask 3 questions. There's no right or wrong answers, though, some people might judge you on one of the answers.
No pressure or anything.
Exactly.
Thank you, Jean-Paul, for making us feel more relaxed.
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for. You thought you were just coming on for a little quiet talk about Just Desserts? No, I'm going to delve into your lives and your backgrounds. Okay, question number 1, Brad, I'm going to ask you this first. What creator or team within musical theater has had a great influence on you? Now, this could be a composer, lyricist, a director, producer, stage manager. It could be somebody famous or not famous, like a teacher. Is there anybody who's had a good influence on you in the musical theater world?
Well, if I may, I need to diverge in one respect, but I've had 3 major influences.
Cool.
One fully theater, one half theater, half classical, and the other fully classical. And those 3 people are, in chronological order, Ludwig van Beethoven, Leonard Bernstein, and actually Richard Rodgers and Leonard Bernstein. So those 3 have had the biggest influence.
Nice. And for yourself, Barbara?
Well, I've always, as a word person, I can remember growing up listening to and singing along with a lot of the Lerner and Loewe musicals, which I still love to this day. Just watched Gigi the other day again. So I just love the intelligence of their lyrics. Stephen Sondheim, when I discovered him, was a big influence. And actually, then I think I kind of went the absolute opposite direction and kind of re-embraced Oscar Hammerstein. I spent a lot of time when I was younger trying to be as witty and clever as Sondheim and Alan J. Lerner, and I came to a greater appreciation of the simplicity of Oscar Hammerstein later, and how he could capture the essence of a song without a lot of fireworks.
Cool. Good answers, 1 point each. Both correct. I know. Now it gets harder. So question number 2. Now, if you were to enter the bake-off, what would you bake? Brad?
If Well, if it were, there were, my dish during the pandemic was macaroni and cheese. Recipe from the New York Times that was flawless every single time. That would be my recipe.
Woohoo!
That would be the one.
Would you win the Bake Off with a mac and cheese recipe though? It would be different.
I would tie for first.
Okay, nice. And Barbara, yourself.
Oh Lord, I probably wouldn't make it past the first round. If I had to bake something, it's would probably be my blueberry crumble, which involves putting blueberries in a pan, squeezing lemon juice on them, and then making a cinnamon and sugar and flour crumble, which could not be any easier. I would never win the Bake Off with that recipe, but at least I wouldn't have to have a crib sheet while I was making it.
I hope one of our listeners is going to make that and let us know how it turns out, because that would be great to know. Answers, both correct. 1 point each. All right. Now the question, we're going to learn more about you. Food in the theater or cell phones in the theater? Which is worse? Brad?
Rappers in the theater and phones in the theater. Phones both with the screen on,
yeah,
and the ringer on. I mean, it's the screen as well as the ringer. And the food is definitely the wrapper.
Yep. I can remember sitting in a show and it was like crackle, crackle, crackle of the plastic. And it's like, shut up.
But what if somebody was eating blueberry crumble in the theater during your show?
Blueberry crumble has the added benefit of being a quiet dessert.
It's true. It's true. It's just messy though. That's the one thing about food in the theater. People leave their cups and their garbage on the floor, and it drives me insane. But I will eat blueberry crumble in a theater. I also would have accepted the answer, both are awful, get rid of them. So,
well, yeah, I mean, all of the above.
Exactly. Another perfect score. 3 for 3 for both of you. I have no prizes, just like the newlywed game.
Hey, no prizes. I'm leaving.
How about a lifetime supply of rice-a-roni?
Woohoo!
I'm going to have to try rice-a-roni one day. I've never tried it. Have you guys tried rice-a-roni? I've never.
I tried it once and I made it for my husband once because it was on sale, and he goes, "Oh, please never make this again." So I guess I won't be getting, my rice-a-roni endorsement anytime soon.
But yeah, I have to let the audience know we're not sponsored by rice-a-roni, just to let everyone know, or Chuck Woolery. Thank you both for spending some time with me today and teaching us all about Just Desserts and learning about the two of you as well. It's been fantastic. Thank you. And if the show gets on again, let me know. We will promote the heck out of it and get as many butts in those seats as we can.
Great.
So the Legacy Theater, Brantford, Connecticut, June 2nd to, I believe, June 27th.
See, that's why I keep Brad around. He's always good with that stuff.
I forgot I am promoting that. I have it in my social media thing. So yes, I am promoting it. So yeah, if you're in Connecticut, June 2nd to what? Sorry?
I believe it's June 27th.
Okay.
The Legacy Theater. Yep.
Wow. That'll be exciting. Because have either of you been into a live theater yet? I know they're just opening stuff.
No.
So.
And Legacy, this is a brand new theater. They did a major capital campaign, and the theater itself is just a beautiful little gem.
Wow, that's fantastic. If the border was open, I would head down there, but I don't even know when that's going to happen for me. I'm in Toronto, so yeah.
I thought I heard in a boat.
Where are you coming? Where are you?
Is he a secret Barbara? Canadian?
I know. I like to hide. Again, thank you both so much for coming on and talking to me and about the show. So
thank you. This was great.
No problem.
Great. Thanks so much.
We were just speaking with Brad Ross and Barbara Campbell, the creators of Just Desserts, here on Be Our Guest. Tune in next week as we'll speak with another guest or guests about their life, love, and passion. That is musical theater. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanov. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.